You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. The sunlight was already creeping in through the blinds when I woke up, the air in our room thick with the smell of morning coffee. I rubbed my eyes and rolled out of bed, dragging myself into the bathroom to wash up. It was quiet, too quiet, but not in an eerie way. Just one of those mornings where nothing seemed to demand your attention. A peaceful kind of stillness. I shuffled into the kitchen. Amy was standing there, the coffee pot in hand, humming something under her breath. She turned when she heard me. "Morning," she said, a playful grin already tugging at the corners of her mouth. "What do you think? Should I test your patience today? See how far I can push you?" I chuckled, leaning against the counter. "Go ahead, but you know I'm basically unbreakable." "Try me unbreakable, huh?" she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I'll take that as a challenge." I raised an eyebrow, pretending to be intimidated. "I'm sure you'll try, but you'll fail." She laughed, her tone light. "We'll see." She poured the coffee into 2 mugs, sliding one toward me. I reached for it, grateful for the warmth. Amy was always like this in the morning, playful, teasing. It was one of those things I loved about her. The routine was simple, predictable, and that was fine. That's how we'd always been. Comfortable, no surprises. I sipped my coffee, glancing at the clock. I gotta get going. "Big meeting today." She said absently, fiddling with the coffee maker. "I bet your meeting's not half as exciting as my day's gonna be." "Probably not," I agreed, finishing off my mug. "But I'll be thinking of you, trying to break me. Good luck with that." Amy smiled, but there was something about the way she was looking at me that seemed just a little too sharp. I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was just the way she'd mentioned testing my patience, like she was actually planning something. But I brushed it off. I grabbed my keys off the counter, gave Amy a quick kiss on the cheek, and walked out the door, feeling like today was just going to be another one of those normal days. No need for anything different, nothing out of the ordinary. It was a quiet morning, and in that quiet, I didn't see the storm coming. I grabbed my coat, ready to head out the door when I paused. My keys weren't where they usually were, on the kitchen counter next to the door. I checked the table by the window. Nothing. Checked my jacket pockets. Empty. I cursed under my breath, scanning the room. "Amy," I called, already heading back into the kitchen. She was still at the counter, sipping her coffee, but she glanced up when I walked in. "Yeah? Have you seen my keys?" She raised an eyebrow. "Check the freezer." I stopped. "The freezer?" "Yeah, you always leave them in weird places. I'm guessing you put them in there by accident." I frowned. It was a weird suggestion. Sure, I wasn't exactly known for being meticulous, but the freezer? Still, I walked over to it, opened the door, and there they were, sitting on top of a bag of frozen vegetables. Not even buried under anything, just right on top. I stared at them for a second, trying to make sense of it. Amy came up behind me, peering into the freezer. "Told you." I shook my head, not sure whether to laugh or just shake it off. "That's weird." "Probably just sleepwalking," she said with a grin, shrugging. "Or maybe your brain just likes hiding things in random spots to mess with you." "Yeah, maybe," I muttered, still trying to figure out how the hell they ended up there. I grabbed the keys, shut the freezer, and tried to focus. Whatever, it was nothing. I tossed them in my pocket and left the house, but as I pulled out of the driveway, something nagged at me. The morning had been off. Amy's weird comment, the keys in the freezer. It didn't sit right, but I didn't have time to dwell on it. Not today. The meeting at work was too important. Still, all through my drive, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The strange occurrences kept running through my mind, like I was missing something. I tried to push it out, but the longer I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't have a damn clue what was going on. I got to the office, and the first thing I did was check my phone for any updates on the project. It was easy to lose myself in work when my mind was spinning. I dove into the spreadsheets, the emails, the calls. I threw myself into the numbers, the deadlines, the tasks. But the weirdness lingered. The keys. Amy's offhand remark. I kept looking around the office like something would jump out at me, but nothing did. I couldn't focus. The clock ticked by, slower than it should have. By mid-afternoon, I was mentally exhausted. I couldn't stop myself from thinking about it. What if it wasn't just me? What if something bigger was going on? Maybe I was just stressed, overthinking things. Still, it bugged me. I tried to force the thought aside. When I finally made it home that evening, the weirdness followed me. I dropped my bag on the floor and headed for the kitchen. "Hey," I called out. "How was your day?" Amy was sitting at the table, flipping through a magazine. She looked up, then stood and walked over to me. "It was fine. Yours?" "Busy. But I got through it." I smiled, trying to shake off the lingering unease. "You wouldn't believe what happened this morning." "Oh?" She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "What happened?" "Where's the chair?" I asked, glancing into the living room. She raised an eyebrow. "What chair?" "The one by the window," I said, pointing toward the corner of the room where we always kept the armchair. Amy followed my gaze, her eyes narrowing. She stepped into the room, looked around, and then back at me. "I don't know. I didn't move it." The chair was a little out of place, just a few inches from where it normally sat, but enough that it was noticeable. I frowned. "It wasn't like this before." Amy shrugged again, a little too casually. "Maybe you moved it when you were cleaning." "I didn't clean," I said, irritation edging into my voice. "I'm telling you, it was fine this morning." "You sure you didn't?" "I didn't touch it," she cut me off, giving me an almost amused look. "It's just a chair, Jason." "You're overthinking it?" I stared at her, suddenly aware of how much I was questioning everything. The chair, the keys, the way she seemed completely unfazed by any of it. "Yeah," I muttered. "Probably just stress." I told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. Maybe I was more tired than I realized. Maybe it was just a string of little things, but nothing major. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right. I came home a little later than usual, the usual grind from work still weighing on me. I'd been running late all day, and when I opened the front door, I expected to hear Amy moving around the house, maybe putting together dinner or settling in with something to watch. Instead, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I dropped my keys on the table and called out, "Amy?" "Yeah, I'm in here," she answered from the kitchen. I followed the sound of her voice, expecting to find her stirring something on the stove or cleaning up from lunch. But instead, she was standing by the counter, phone in hand. "What's up?" I asked, glancing around. She didn't look up at first. "I canceled our reservation for tonight." I froze. "What? Why?" She finally looked up, her expression almost too casual. "I don't know. Just wasn't feeling it anymore. No big deal, right?" I swallowed the disappointment that settled in my chest. We'd been planning that dinner for weeks. I'd been looking forward to it, especially after the hell of the past few days at work. But instead of letting it show, I just nodded. "Yeah, sure. No problem. What do you want to do instead?" "I figured we could just order something in," she said, as though it was the most natural suggestion in the world. I couldn't help the small ache that formed behind my ribs. "Right. Yeah, sounds good. I guess it'll be a casual night then." "Exactly," she said with a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I tried to shake it off, but something about her tone, the way she seemed so distant, bothered me. I walked over to the fridge to grab a drink, trying to reset. She picked up her phone again, scrolling through it absently. The night carried on like that, off. Amy wasn't her usual self. She kept trying to keep things perfect, but in a way that felt forced, like she was trying to make everything seem like it was fine when I could feel the shift in the air. I sat down at the table while she got the food ready, the silence between us filling the space, heavier than it should have been. "You think we should have gotten the pasta or maybe the sushi?" she asked, tapping her phone and looking up at me for confirmation. "Pasta sounds good," I said, trying to play along. "No, wait, maybe the sushi." "You never know with pasta," she said quickly, her eyes darting from the phone to me like she was looking for reassurance. "We'll go with the sushi." "Don't you think that's better?" I hesitated. "Sure, sushi's good." Her smile faded, and she looked back at her phone, her fingers moving quicker now, almost nervously. I rubbed my temples. What the hell was going on with her? With us? There was something in the way she kept circling back to the smallest decisions, like she was trying to make everything seem just right, perfect even, but I couldn't place why it felt off. As she made the call to the delivery place, I watched her carefully. When she hung up, she turned to me, almost too casually, and said, "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, but I wasn't sure I believed myself. Just tired. You know how it is. She nodded, but I noticed how her eyes lingered on me, almost like she was waiting for me to say something more. To react. I exhaled, trying to keep my frustration under control. You seem a little off tonight, too. Everything okay with you? Amy gave me a half laugh, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Off? No, I'm fine. Just trying to make sure everything is perfect. Her words struck a chord in me, like I'd heard them too many times before, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was testing me somehow, pushing to see how far she could go. It was subtle, but I could feel it, and it didn't sit right. I cleared my throat. Perfect, huh? Yeah, sure. I guess we all try to make things perfect now and then. Mm-hmm, she hummed, but there was something about her that felt distant. The air between us was heavier than it had been this morning, and the tension was creeping up on me, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Dinner arrived a little while later. We ate in silence, picking at our food, the background noise of the TV filling the awkward spaces. But even that felt off. I kept wondering what I was missing. Was I overthinking things? Maybe. But something was clearly different, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. After dinner, Amy started cleaning up, moving around the kitchen with purpose. But there was an edge to her that I couldn't quite put my finger on. She kept trying to get things just right. The glasses aligned in the sink, the towels folded neatly. Even the way she stacked the dishes seemed like an exercise in precision, like if everything was in its perfect place, maybe the tension between us would go away. But it wasn't working. I stood up, grabbing my coat from the chair. I'm going to take a walk. Get some air. I'll be back in a bit. Amy glanced at me, the look in her eyes unreadable. Sure, take your time. I walked out, the cool air hitting me like a splash of cold water. I had no idea what was going on. Something was changing, but I couldn't tell if it was just me or if there was something deeper happening. All I knew was that this wasn't the woman I'd been married to. This wasn't the life I thought I had, and I needed to figure out what the hell was going on. I came home from the walk feeling restless, like I was chasing after something I couldn't see. Amy was sitting on the couch, flipping through a book. She glanced up when I stepped inside, her expression shifting to one of mild curiosity. Feel better? She asked, though it didn't seem like she really cared either way. Just another question to keep the conversation going. Yeah, just needed some space. I took off my shoes and set my bag by the door, still feeling a little on edge. I went into the laundry room, intending to toss in a load of clothes before bed. As I rifled through the pile of laundry, I noticed something odd: my headphones. The pair I usually kept in the living room, by the couch, were lying in the laundry basket tangled up in an old t-shirt. I pulled them out, furrowing my brow. Hey, Amy, I called out, my voice a little sharper than I intended. Why are my headphones in the laundry? She glanced over from the couch, a smile playing at her lips. I don't know. Maybe you left them in the kitchen and I thought they were dirty. Could be a mix-up. I stared at the headphones, trying to make sense of it. I don't usually leave them anywhere but the couch. They definitely weren't in the kitchen. Okay then. Maybe they walked their way in, she said, chuckling lightly like I was overreacting. You're really getting into the mystery of the missing headphones, huh? I didn't laugh. My stomach tightened, the unease from earlier settling deeper. It was just a small thing, I knew, but the pattern was starting to pile up. The keys, the chair, and now this. Nothing big, but enough to make me question my own memory, my own awareness. And Amy, so casual about it, almost amused by my confusion, was only making it worse. Right, I said, setting the headphones down, feeling the weight of the strange, growing discomfort in my chest. Must be me. I tried to let it go, but the nagging feeling wouldn't leave. I walked back into the living room, plopping down next to Amy on the couch, trying to focus on the TV. But the noise of it, the static, felt too loud, like it was filling the empty space between us. Amy was still flipping through her book, barely paying attention. Her calmness only made my sense of disorientation worse. When it came time for dinner, things didn't improve. Amy was already in the kitchen, setting the table with an almost obsessive attention to detail. She was wearing an old blouse, a white one, that I hadn't seen her wear in months. I couldn't help but notice the faint stain on the sleeve, something dark and dried that never got washed out. Did you ever think about getting rid of that one? I asked, pointing to the blouse. That stain's been there for a while. She glanced down at it, then back at me, an eyebrow raised. I like it, and you know how much I hate wasting things. I'm fine with it. I get it, I said, though the way she said it felt more defensive than casual. But you're usually so picky about stains. I figured you'd... She cut me off with a half smile, tilting her head. What's the matter, Jason? You obsessed with perfection now? I hesitated, caught off guard by her tone. I'm just saying, I don't know, it's not like you to let something like that slide. That's all. She laughed, the sound sharp. You're such a neat freak, always trying to keep everything perfect. I'm a little messy? Big deal? I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't stop the irritation from bubbling up. Why was she being like this? Why was she pushing back so hard on every little thing I said? Dinner went by in a haze of small remarks and passive tension. I could feel her testing me again, pushing buttons, seeing how much she could get away with. She was the one wearing a stained blouse, but somehow I was the one being made out to be the one with the problem. She pushed her plate aside after finishing, stretching her arms over her head, a satisfied look on her face. You know, maybe you're right. I should have gotten rid of this old thing. You really do care about the small stuff, huh? I care about what's reasonable, I said, not knowing if I was answering her or myself. She looked at me for a moment, then stood up, picking at a piece of food on her plate as if it didn't matter. Well, I'm not perfect, Jason. You should have figured that out by now. I watched her walk off to the kitchen, the words hanging between us, sharp and biting. I was done with the game, but it seemed like Amy wasn't. Every little disruption, every small test, was starting to chip away at me. She was intentionally pulling at threads, seeing how far she could push before I snapped, and I was getting closer to that breaking point than I wanted to admit. I didn't respond. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and let the silence fill the room. But I wasn't really listening to the quiet anymore. I was cataloging everything. The missing keys, the misplaced headphones, the blouse, the stain, all the little things that had added up to something bigger. And I couldn't ignore it any longer. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just me. I waited until after dinner, my patience thinning with every small thing she did. The way she kept looking at me, like I was the one who was off, like I was the one who was overreacting. The way she'd tested me with her comments, her little actions, the stain on her blouse, the headphones in the laundry. I couldn't do it anymore. Hey, Amy, I said, my voice steady but carrying more weight than I wanted it to. Is something going on? Because you're really starting to push it. She looked up at me, her expression flickering for a second. But then it was gone, replaced by that same playful smirk she'd been wearing all week. Push it? She raised an eyebrow, leaning back in her chair like I was the one being ridiculous. What do you mean? You know what I mean, I said, frustration creeping into my voice. You've been acting different, more like you're testing me, and I'm getting tired of it. She laughed like it was all just some big joke. Oh, come on, Jason. You're really going to make a big deal out of me testing your patience? It's just a little game. I felt the blood rush to my face, my hands clenched into fists. A game? Is that what this is? Because it doesn't feel like one. To me, Amy sat up straighter, her eyes sharp now. You're overthinking it. I'm just messing with you. Lighten up, I could feel myself holding back. I wanted to say something more, to get the truth out of her. But I knew if I did, it would only make things worse. So I let it sit there, the words unsaid, the tension thick between us. Yeah, well, I'm not the one leaving things out of place, I snapped. I'm not the one making plans without asking. It's like you're trying to get a rise out of me. Her smile faltered for just a second, then she shrugged. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm just bored. Bored? I couldn't believe it. We've been together for years, Amy. Bored? What the hell is that supposed to mean? She rolled her eyes, standing up and walking past me. It's nothing, Jason. Really? You're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's just a little disruption. Disruption? I repeated, my voice rising despite myself. Yeah, I'm starting to notice the disruption. But it's more than that. It's like you're trying to see how much I'll take, and I don't know why. I'm not sure if you're testing me or if you're trying to make me snap. She stopped in her tracks, half turning to face me with a look that was almost amused. You think I'm trying to make you snap? You really believe that? I was about to respond, but then I caught myself. The words felt too heavy, like if I said them, it would all unravel. The last thing I wanted was to escalate things. Instead, I took a breath, trying to keep my cool. You've been leaving things out of place. You've been making decisions without talking to me. This whole game you're playing isn't funny anymore. It's starting to feel manipulative. Amy's eyes hardened, her posture changing. She folded her arms across her chest, but there was something about the way she was standing that told me she wasn't backing down. Manipulative? Wow, that's a pretty big word, don't you think? It's not about the word, Amy, I shot back. It's about what's happening between us. You're acting like I'm the problem, but it's you. You're the one making everything feel wrong. There was a silence between us, the kind that hung in the air like it was too thick to breathe through. Amy didn't say anything, but I could see her jaw tighten, like she was deciding whether to say what was on her mind. I'm just testing you, she said finally, her voice softer but still carrying that edge. Seeing how much you can take. How much patience you have. It's not a big deal. I shook my head, feeling the frustration coil tighter in my chest. It is a big deal. Why are you doing this, Amy? Why now? She shrugged again, not answering, and I could tell she wasn't going to. And for a second, I realized maybe she didn't even know. But that didn't make it any easier. It didn't make the discomfort, the pressure, go away. I wanted to be honest with her, to tell her how much this was getting to me, but something in the back of my mind told me it wasn't the right time. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was the one who'd changed. But every time I tried to approach it, she dodged. She kept the game going, and the more she did, the more trapped I felt. So instead, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to relax. I'm just asking if something's wrong, because it sure as hell feels like there's something wrong. She didn't respond, but I could tell by the way she looked at me that she wasn't planning to give me any answers. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick, and I realized that I didn't know how to fix this, and I didn't know if I even could. I couldn't take it anymore. The constant little games, the shifting boundaries, the way Amy's behavior was starting to feel like a test I couldn't pass. I'd tried to ignore it, tried to be patient, tried to tell myself it was just a phase. But this wasn't a phase. It was something deeper. And if she wasn't going to take it seriously, I would. I walked into the living room where Amy was sitting, flipping through her phone. She looked up when I entered, but the usual playful smirk didn't come to her lips. She'd been quiet all evening, and I'd had enough of the silence hanging between us. Listen, I said, my voice firm but controlled. I'm done. I'm done with this game. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not. Amy raised an eyebrow, her eyes flicking up to meet mine. What are you talking about? I took a step closer, standing tall. I'm talking about the way you've been acting. The way you keep pushing me, leaving things out of place, making decisions without consulting me. I've had enough. Her lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a real smile. It was a defensive, almost mocking one. Oh, come on, Jason. You're overreacting. It's just a little fun. Can't you take a joke? I shook my head, the frustration boiling in my chest. This isn't a joke anymore, Amy. This is manipulation. I don't know why you're doing it, but it's not funny, and I'm not going to keep pretending like it's okay. She looked at me like I was speaking another language. Manipulation? Seriously? Yes, seriously, and I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I paused, taking a breath, making sure she heard every word. I need things to change. By the end of the week, I need you to decide whether you're in this marriage or not. If you keep treating me like I'm a punching bag for your boredom, I'm gone. Amy's face froze. The smirk fell away. For a moment, she didn't speak, just stared at me with wide eyes, trying to process what I'd said. You're not serious, she finally said, her voice quiet, but edged with something that wasn't amusement. Oh, I'm serious, I replied, my voice steady, even though inside I felt like I was standing on a ledge. Whatever this is, it's not how we're going to live. I'm not going to be part of your little experiment anymore. Either you figure your shit out, or I walk. She stood up now, crossing her arms in front of her, her gaze shifting away from mine. You're really putting an ultimatum on me? After everything we've been through? You're going to leave me over this? I could feel the weight of her words, but I didn't flinch. Yeah, I am. I don't want to. But I can't stay in a relationship where I feel like I'm being played for sport. You either want this marriage, or you don't. The room went quiet again. Amy turned away from me, pacing for a few steps. You're going to throw everything away over a few weird moments? You're going to leave me because I'm, what, testing you? No, I said firmly, stepping closer. I'm going to leave because you're playing games with me. And I'm not a damn puppet. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but I'm done being your experiment. Her shoulders tensed, and for a brief moment, I thought she might say something to change my mind, but instead, she shot me a look that was almost pitying. You're really serious about this, aren't you? You just walk away, I would, I said, meeting her gaze directly. I'm not going to keep wasting time trying to figure out what you want from me. I need you to figure it out, and I need you to decide. By the end of the week, Amy's eyes narrowed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a flicker of vulnerability, but she quickly covered it up with that same cool exterior she always wore. Fine, she said after a long pause, if that's how you want to play it. I didn't say anything, just stood there, waiting. The air between us felt like it had thickened, but at least now, it wasn't uncertain anymore. We both knew exactly what was at stake. Amy turned back to her phone, but I could tell the playful tone was gone. She was no longer amused. You really think this is it? That I'm just going to roll over and let you walk out the door? I think you're going to have to make a choice, I said, my voice unwavering. Because I'm not going to keep living like this. She put the phone down on the table, finally meeting my eyes with something close to seriousness. All right, fine, but don't think I'm just going to beg you to stay. If this is how it's going to be, then we'll see. I'm not asking you to beg, I said, a little calmer now. I'm asking you to choose. She nodded slowly, like she was still weighing her options. We'll see. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving the room behind me, but my mind was racing. There was no turning back now. Whatever was coming next, I was ready for it. I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. I'd drawn the line, and now the ball was in her court. The next few days were like walking a tightrope. Amy tried to act like nothing had happened, like the conversation we'd had was just a passing moment. She didn't bring it up again, but I could feel the undercurrent of tension every time I walked into a room, every time she looked at me. She was waiting for me to soften, to back down. I couldn't. I wouldn't. The morning of the deadline, I walked into the kitchen to find Amy already there, sipping her coffee. She didn't even look up when I entered, but I saw her phone screen on the table. She had posted something on social media, an old picture of us from a vacation we took a couple of years ago. We were sitting on a beach, laughing, arms wrapped around each other. It was the kind of picture people post when they want to make everyone else think everything is perfect. The caption was simple. Sometimes I wish we could go back to this. I didn't react. I picked up my coffee and sat at the table without acknowledging it. Amy glanced up, her eyes searching my face. Do you remember that day? She asked, her voice almost wistful. Yeah, I remember, I said flatly, not giving her anything to work with. It was a good day. She smiled, but it wasn't genuine. It was the kind of smile someone gives when they're trying to pull you back in, trying to remind you of something good, so you'll forget the bad. It wasn't just a good day, Jason. It was perfect. You said so yourself. I took a sip of my coffee, trying to keep my voice steady. And I remember telling you then that nothing's perfect. It doesn't work like that. Her eyes flickered for a second, but she quickly masked it, standing up and moving around the kitchen like everything was fine. She was shifting, trying to change the mood, trying to break me down with nostalgia, like it would make me forget everything else. I just thought, she said casually, it might be nice to remember what we had. You know, the good stuff. We've been through a lot. Maybe that's all we need to get back on track. I shook my head, putting my coffee cup down with a soft thud. No, that's not how it works. It's not about getting back on track, Amy. It's about this. The game you're playing, the way you've been treating me. She stopped, her back to me, as she rinsed out her mug, the silence stretching. I wasn't playing games. I was just trying to make things interesting again, she said, the words coming out too quickly, like she was trying to justify herself before I had the chance to interrupt. I don't want things to be interesting. I want things to be real, I said, my voice finally breaking the tension. And you can't just keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not. Her shoulders tightened, but she didn't turn around. I'm not pretending. I think you are, I replied, and I'm done pretending that I don't see what's happening here. I gave you the deadline, Amy. I'm done waiting. She finally turned to face me, and I saw the anger flash in her eyes, quickly masked by a forced calm. You really think you can just throw all of this away? After everything we've been through, you think you can just walk out and leave me like this? I'm not walking out on you, Amy. I'm walking out on this, whatever this has become. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. If you don't want to fix it, that's on you. But I'm done being a part of this toxic game. Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something raw behind her usual defenses. She wasn't the calm, composed Amy I was used to. She was shaken. You don't even care anymore, do you? Not like I used to, I said, the words coming out sharper than I meant. Because I can't care about someone who keeps pushing me to the edge for no reason. She scoffed, pacing away from me, but not before her phone buzzed. She glanced down at it, then back at me with a sly smile. You know, she said slowly as though trying to bait me, maybe we should talk about this over dinner tonight. Maybe I could make things up to you. You like your steak medium rare, right? I stared at her, knowing exactly what she was doing. She was trying to slide back into the routine, trying to act like everything was fine and pull me back in with the little gestures, the things I used to like, but I wasn't falling for it. No, I said, the word cutting through the air. You don't get to do that anymore. The games are over. Her expression faltered, the smile slipping for a moment before she quickly recovered. You're really serious about this, huh? I'm not playing games, Amy. I've already talked to my lawyer. The separation papers are being finalized. We're done. She stood there, stunned, the phone still in her hand, her eyes wide. You actually went and did that? Her voice was low, almost a whisper. You actually made the decision without talking to me? Yeah, I said, no longer feeling the weight of the decision, because I already made up my mind. And I'm done asking for you to meet me halfway. She didn't answer right away, her face going through 1,000 expressions, shock, frustration, then a dark, calculating look. I can't believe you're really going through with this, she finally muttered, almost to herself. I am, I said, my voice steady. And it's over, Amy. I'm not changing my mind. She didn't say anything else, just turned and walked out of the room, her footsteps fading down the hall. I stood there for a moment, letting the weight of it all settle in. The decision was made. I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. It was time for both of us to face what was really happening, and I was ready to face it alone if that's what it took. The final day came like an inevitable wave, slow at first, then crashing down without mercy. I woke up that morning, the weight of what I had to do pressing into my chest. Amy hadn't said much since I made the call with the lawyer, but the silence was thick, the air between us full of a tension that neither of us could ignore. I couldn't put it off any longer. Today was the day. I found her in the kitchen, her back to me, making coffee. The sound of the machine, the clink of the mug, felt like the final act of a play. She was trying to make things seem normal, but I saw right through it. She didn't turn around when I walked in, but I knew she felt me. Morning, she said, her voice too light, too casual. I didn't respond. I just stood there, leaning against the counter, waiting for her to face me. It was time. Finally, she turned, her eyes scanning mine, but there was a hesitation in them. She knew this conversation was coming. She just didn't know how it was going to go. I know what today is, she said quietly, setting the coffee pot back down. And I've been thinking about it. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The words had already been spoken, the ultimatum already laid out. She knew what she was facing. She walked over to me, a smile slowly spreading across her face, like she was trying to pull me back into something we'd once had. She reached up and touched my arm lightly, her voice soft and coaxing. Jason, can't we just let this go? I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. Maybe we can work this out without it going any further. I didn't pull away from her touch, but I didn't soften either. I held my ground, my eyes steady. No, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is what's been happening between us for months, maybe longer. The little games, the power struggles, the way you've been treating me like I'm just something to control, something to test. I'm not doing this anymore. Her smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered, her voice going sweeter, more insistent. You're right, Jason. I've been testing you, I admit it, but I've been trying to figure things out too. I've been trying to figure us out. Can't you see that? I know I've been difficult, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. I don't want to lose you. I took a step back, crossing my arms, staring at her. You don't get to play the I love you card now. Not after everything. You're not going to manipulate me with that. You've had your chance to prove you want this, and you haven't. You've been trying to push me to the edge to see how far you could go. I don't want a relationship like that. I need something real, something that doesn't feel like a test. Her face tightened, but she didn't back down. She tried a different approach, leaning in close, her voice dropping, softer now. I know I've messed up, Jason, but we've been through so much together. Don't you remember the good times? All the things we've shared? This is us. Don't throw it all away because of some misunderstandings. She was getting desperate now, and I could see the cracks in her perfect facade. She wanted me to forgive her without asking the hard questions, without facing the truth. She wanted me to give in to nostalgia, to pretend that things could go back to the way they were. But I couldn't. I shook my head slowly, locking eyes with her. No, Amy. You're the one who's throwing it away. You've been playing these games because you're afraid of facing the truth. The truth is, I'm not going to be part of your tests anymore. And I'm not going to keep living in a marriage that feels like I'm being manipulated every step of the way. This isn't about the good times or the bad ones. It's about what we're willing to do to make this work, and you haven't been willing to do anything. You've been running away from the truth. Her breath hitched, but she didn't break. Instead, she took a deep breath, and in that moment, I saw it, the mask completely slip. Maybe I haven't been perfect, Jason, but I can't change who I am. I can't just be what you want me to be. I can't pretend to be something I'm not. And there it was, the final blow. The admission I'd been waiting for, the moment I finally understood everything. I took a step back, exhaling slowly. Then we're done. Because I can't be in a marriage where I'm constantly waiting for you to change. I need someone who's ready to face the truth with me, not someone who's constantly running from it. You're right. This isn't going to work, not if you're not willing to change. Her face crumpled for just a second, and I saw the raw hurt behind her eyes, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. The words were out, and there was no going back. You really mean it, don't you? She whispered, her voice shaking now. I do, I said, my voice firm. I've made my decision, and I'm not going to let you manipulate me into changing my mind. She didn't say anything else. She just stood there, staring at me, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The silence between us felt like an eternity, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I turned and walked toward the door, not looking back. Take care of yourself, Amy. I hope you figure things out. I didn't know what she was thinking or if she would even try to reach out. I didn't care. I'd made my decision, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was breathing again. As I walked out, I left the woman I'd once loved behind, knowing that I couldn't let myself be manipulated any longer. I was done, and I was finally free. I spent the next few days handling the details of the separation. I wasn't rushing through it, but I wasn't dragging my feet either. There was no need for emotional outbursts or drama. Just practical stuff, contacting the lawyer, dividing the assets, figuring out logistics. I had no desire to prolong the agony or keep looking back. The decision was made. There was no turning back. Amy tried to reach out to me a few times. At first it was a text, then a couple of calls, all of them ignored. I didn't even feel the need to listen to the voicemails. There was nothing she could say that would change things. One evening, I found a letter from her in my mailbox. I opened it slowly, expecting the same kind of apology I had heard too many times before. Empty, just trying to get me to soften. But the letter wasn't that. It wasn't about begging for me back either. It was a simple, cold statement. I think you made a mistake. I hope you'll reconsider. It felt more like a message for her own peace of mind than anything directed at me. I threw it in the trash. There was no point in pretending I didn't know what this was. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry it didn't work out, but I wasn't going to be the one to fix it anymore. I spent the next few days moving out, not much more than the basics, clothes, personal items, some old photographs. The house we'd shared felt like a different world now, like it was someone else's life I was packing up. I didn't want to stay in the past anymore. I wasn't even sure if I'd ever looked at it the way I needed to. The silence was heavy, but it was different now. It wasn't a cold, empty silence. It was a quiet I hadn't known in years, a quiet I'd been craving. I hadn't realized how much I'd been suffocating under the weight of the games, the manipulation. I didn't feel guilty for walking away anymore. My self-respect had to come first, and I wasn't willing to compromise that for peace at any cost. That night, I sat on the couch in my new place, everything still in boxes. There was a strange comfort in the unfamiliarity, like I was seeing my life from a new angle. It wasn't easy, but it was clearer than it had ever been. No more walking on eggshells, no more second-guessing my boundaries. The phone buzzed on the table, another text from Amy. I ignored it. The answer had already been given. I wasn't going to let myself be dragged back into a life that no longer worked for me. The past was behind me now. I could feel that new chapter unfolding, and for the first time in a long while, I was ready to embrace the silence. It was the beginning of something different, and for the first time in years, it felt like the right choice.